It's no secret that one of Egypt's transitional government's priorities is stimulating the economy. We're here with His Excellency Dr. Ahmed Galal, Egypt's Minister of Finance and highly respected economist, to talk about the challenges that Egypt is facing in terms of the economy and what the transitional government is doing to boost the economy even further. Dr. Galal, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for coming.
Now, I'd like to start way from the beginning. When the new transitional government was inaugurated on July 16th, what were some of the main issues that you were facing?
That's a very good question. The way you identify problems is the beginning of whether you will solve it the right way or not the right way. And the way we diagnose the problems of the economy is under three headings. First is macroeconomic imbalances. We are spending budget deficit. We are spending way too much beyond the revenues that we get. Balance of payment deficits. We are importing a lot more than we are exporting. That's the first part of the problem. We are basically living beyond our means, as simple as that. Second part of the problem was that the economy was growing very, very slowly. Last year, economic growth was only about 2% of GDP. That's very, very little. It is too low to enable Egypt or Egyptians to find jobs for the newcomers, new entrants into the labor market, let alone the 3.6 million Egyptians who don't have a job. So that's another problem. The third problem was, of course, that many Egyptians felt that even at times when economic growth was high, most of it was going to a few people and the rest were not getting it. Social injustice. So for this government, for the interim government to deal with the problems, we needed to deal with all three. If we try to deal only with macroeconomic imbalances or with economic growth only or with no social injustice, I think we would have been missing the point. And that is essentially what we have been trying to do since we came until now.
Now, we know that you were working on a stimulus package this year and you started to implement it. Can you give us a summary about what the stimulus package contains and what it's going to do to push Egypt's economy forward?
Having identified the problems under these three headings, the best way of dealing with the economy at the time was the question of pushing it, because the economy is too slow, so you wanted to push it forward. You wanted to activate it. You wanted to energize the economy. And you do that by putting in fresh money. That is the first stimulus package. The first stimulus package was something like 30 billion pounds, and this is something like 1.5% of GDP. That's sizable, that's significant. And where the money was spent was on two types of things. One is fundamentally public infrastructure, so roads, bridges, trucks, what have you. You know, all of it are infrastructure, electricity, maintenance. I mean, there is a long list of projects across the country in different governorates that have to do with the infrastructure. Something like 22.3 billion pounds out of 29.7 billion. The rest was on issues related to health, something related to some of the economic authorities, like the railway, for instance. So this is, it was meant to do two things: activate the economy for one, but also prepare the economy for bringing in private sector with new investments so that economic growth down the road can be even faster than it would be this year. As you know, this year we are hoping to achieve a 3.5% growth rate compared with the 2.1 of last year.
Speaking about giving the torch to the new incoming government, what is the transitional government doing in order to make the process easier for the new government, specifically in terms of economic situation?
Yeah, you probably heard me say that there are three dividends that the next government is going to receive. The first dividend is the outcome of implementing the political roadmap, because with stability, I think Egypt will be open for business. Egypt will be ready for a takeoff with the new government. So that is the first one. Second one is going to come from the stimulus packages that we are doing now. I was using the metaphor that when you start driving your car, At the beginning, it moves slowly, but then you move from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Suddenly, you are really moving very fast. The economy is exactly the same. We have done one stimulus package, we are doing another one now, and God knows maybe there will be a third. These stimulus packages will have their full impact down the road, and I think the next year the new government is going to benefit from an economy that's operating at a higher level than it has been operating at right now. The third element that will make life easier hopefully for the next government and for the Egyptian economy anyway, it's really, we are working for the Egyptian economy, not necessarily for governments, is that we are doing a lot of serious economic reforms. Many of them are going to have their full impact also later. Let me give you just 2-3 examples. One of the things, for instance, that is happening right now is that the cost of borrowing, because of the expansionary fiscal and monetary policy, the coordination between the two policies, the cost of borrowing for the government is coming down from 14%, 14.5% to something like 10.5%. This means less burden on the government, on the budget deficit. That means that the budget deficit will be lower. That means that the government will borrow less from the banking sector. That means that the private sector is going to have more resources available in the banking sector to borrow from. All this will have its full impact on the private sector down the road. That's one example. Another example is the value-added tax. We are beginning it now, but it's going to have its full impact later on. There is another project that we are beginning, which is, among the many things we are doing, one I would like to focus on. It's the one that has to do with targeting. We are actually trying to put in place a big shift in policy, shifting away from targeting in commodities to targeting individuals. Let me explain that a little bit. When you give a subsidy and you attach the subsidy to a particular product, be it petroleum or oil or butagaz or anything, right? What you are doing is that you are subsidizing the commodity so that both the rich and the poor can have access to that commodity. There is leakage, there is a waste of resources. Those you want to help are not the ones who are getting the subsidy. Compare this situation with another situation where you say, no, you know what? I'm not going to subsidize the commodity. I'm going to subsidize this person or that family. I'm going to identify those who really need the support and need the help. And I'm going to give them the subsidy directly to them, either in the form of cash or tangible benefits, or giving their kids access to good schools or good health services or what have you. You are shifting the subsidy, your way of helping the poor, not through commodities, but by dealing with them directly. We are beginning that process. I know that the full impact of this shift in policy to achieve social justice and balancing it with saving and efficiency is not going to have its full impact now. It's only the next stage that the country will benefit from. We'll save more resources, we'll benefit the poor even more, and that is the right way of doing it.
In terms of spending money that we do have, it's known that Egypt has quite a bit of debt. Can you talk about how we're going to overcome this debt and the money that we're getting from the Gulf? Is it enough for us to push the economy forward?
The trouble with debt is that you accumulate it slowly, and also you can only get rid of it slowly. Let me explain to you a little bit. Typically, the government, every year, we have revenue from taxes and the like, and then we spend the money on wages, on investment, on interest, on all sorts of things. When the revenues, the money that we get is less than the money we spend, we have a deficit. That deficit, I don't have it, so what do? I go and borrow money. Either I borrow it from the banking sector, I borrow it from abroad, I borrow from somewhere. So let's say the first year out of a deficit of 20 pounds, I already have a debt of 20 pounds. But next year, my revenues are less than my expenditure by another 50 pounds. I go and borrow another 50 pounds. 50 plus 20, that makes 70. Over the 10 years, the 70 became 1,000. This is my public debt. So it takes 10 years to accumulate the 1,000 in public debt. I cannot in 1 year bring the debt down from 1,000 to the 20 that I started with. That does not happen. You accumulate it slowly because of your budget deficit. You get rid of it slowly also by reducing your budget deficit, and that is what we are working on. The public debt this year, we inherited a public debt at the beginning of July of this year in the neighborhood of 92% of GDP. You are talking about 1.5 trillion. Not the 1,000 I was talking about by way of debt, 1.5 or 6 trillion pounds. That's a lot of money that we owe everybody, especially domestic public debt. We used some of the money that we had to reduce public debt, the overdraft in the central bank. We are working on reducing the budget deficit so that we are also reducing public debt. Our projections is that the public debt is going to come down from, let's say, 92% of GDP at the end of June of 2013. Over the next 2 years or so, it's going to come down to 80 plus % of GDP. So we are working in that direction, but I am saying that our problems are serious. We need to work on them not only now, but also tomorrow. And nothing will save us other than going to work and work hard.
The last question, some people are very optimistic about where the economy is going, but understandably there are a lot of pessimists that say that they're still not feeling the effects of the economic growth, and it's mostly the poorer, lower class citizens. So what do you have to say to them in terms of the economy, and some of your closing remarks?
No, I think optimism and pessimism is something that it comes from two things, from the way you think or from observing facts on the ground. And historically, in the last few years, on the economic front, we're not doing very well. And if someone is not feeling good about it, I understand that. I have been looking at development in so many countries over a very long period of time. And I came to the conclusion, it's not natural resources that make you prosper. It is not really culture that make you prosper. It is not your geographical location that make you prosper. It is your political system that makes you prosper. And since Egypt is trying to create a new political system where there will be a new constitution that guarantees rights to people, it's a political system with checks and balances. No one, neither the executive branch nor legislative branch, nor the press, nor the judiciary will dominate everything. There will be checks and balances, there will be transparency, there will be accountability. I do believe that this is the one single factor that makes me very convinced that Egypt can do better in the future. Prosperity comes from a good political systems. Good political systems create good policies because politicians have to respond to people. And good policies lead to good outcomes, and good outcomes are not only translated into higher economic growth, but also shared the benefits of economic growth. So equity, growth and equity are the two sides of the story that Egypt is going to be able to deliver in the future.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.